Yo everyone, Skeptic here. It's been quite a while since I uploaded a video, but recently I had a spark of passion and I wanted to make a video about this game that I wished thrived and had way more players and had a really cool esports scene, because I truly believe that this particular game had a lot of potential that was just untapped. And honestly, I don't know if it can even be saved at this point, but the game that I'm talking about is Battlerite. For those of you that don't know what Battlerite is, it's essentially, if you take a MOBA like League of Legends or Dota 2 with like the top-down viewpoint, and you take away the farming aspects and you only have the team fights. That's basically Battlerite. But before I talk about the kind of fun parts of Battlerite, I kind of want to go over the flaws of the game and kind of, at least my opinions on why the game has essentially, quote and unquote, died. So to start off, we have to talk about the Battle Royale craze that happened. So at the time that Battle Royales were really poppin' and everyone was playing it, Stunlock Studios, the developer of Battlerite, decided that they wanted to jump on the bandwagon and wanted to reap in the successes of the genre. So they started to develop Battlerite Royale. And what Battlerite Royale essentially did was it split off the player base into two, and you also, even if you owned Battlerite before the game went free to play and you purchased the early access, you had to buy Battlerite Royale in order to play the game. And to me, that was kind of a big turnoff, because when I heard that Battlerite Royale was announced, I didn't think, well, I will be realistic here. I don't like the Battle Royale genre. That's just a fact. I despise these types of games because I hate having to going into a match, essentially, collecting all the loot, dying within 10 minutes, and then having to re-queue, rinse and repeat. Like, to me, the gameplay loop is not fun to do, which is why I stayed away from games like PUBG, Fortnite, Apex, etc. I just did not want to deal with that bullshit. So normally I would have just ignored Battlerite Royale entirely, but because I played Battlerite and I loved the gameplay, I wanted to give Battlerite Royale a chance, but because it was locked behind a paywall, I didn't give it the time of day at all. And I don't think I'm the only one that kind of thought this way. I'm pretty sure others would have tried it as well if it wasn't initially locked with that barrier of entry. So having Battlerite Royale and Battlerite side by side, they were kind of competing against one another. And as you can see, Battlerite has essentially won in the end. And so now, because of this, most of the players have already left Battlerite Royale for most likely other Battle Royale games that are more highly populated, and Battlerite is just kind of left to fend for itself. So because of this, now we have really high queue times, even in casual matchmaking, ranked is essentially dead because of the low player population. And since ranked is basically non-existent, in casual queue, it's pretty rough. I would say 90% of the time, you're going to get matched up with someone or against someone that has a lot of hours within the game, whether it's hundreds or even thousands of hours, who will just shit on you in the game because you haven't played as much as they did. They could have been playing since the early access, or even after the early access, they might have been playing for a while now. So casual queue is just really unbalanced, so the level of matchmaking can kind of be shaky, I will say. And this also promotes toxicity as well, because the only kind of indicator, I guess, that you can put or kind of identify who is a new player is by their account level. But that all gets negated because Battlerite is a free-to-play game. So you can essentially just create a new Steam account easily for free and just download Battlerite again, and people could easily smurf on you. So because of this, it's hard to tell who's a new player and who's a smurf. And this kind of promotes toxicity within the game alongside of the nature of Battlerite. Battlerite, it puts you, depending on your queue, 2v2 or 3v3. I mainly play 2v2s because that's what I prefer. But most people would play 3v3. So, the nature of the game, when you start off, it's immediately intense. You have to process a lot within the game. Where's my teammate positioned? Where am I positioned? Where are my enemies positioned? What are their team composition? What is ours? So you gotta worry about the matchup. You gotta worry about the player-specific builds that they're doing. You gotta worry about your cooldowns against the enemy's cooldowns. So there's a lot of high stress and a lot of tension within the game, and a lot of execution and knowledge that is required to being successful within Battlerite. So when you lose a game, people are easily upset because of the whole nature of, because of the kind of like high suspension and tension and stress that it brings out. Like, imagine if you landed your skill shot and then your teammate or whatever, they failed to follow up on your skill shot and they go somewhere off and position themselves in a really bad spot, and the opposing team punishes your teammate, and then now you're in either a 1v2 or a 2v3. And in a 2v3, it's winnable, but it's very tough because there's not a lot of comeback factors within the game. The only comeback factors you have is the energy little orbs that they place, the health orbs, and the center orb. That's all you have as a comeback factor. And obviously, if you're fighting a 2v3 or a 1v2, they're gonna have control over the resources. So your chances of making a comeback is even slimmer. And due to this, it promotes that negative feeling of, oh great, my teammate just died because they were doing who knows what, and now I have to try to win in a game that requires a lot of thinking and a lot of execution to basically the barriers to winning have become even greater. And now the feeling of overcoming that barrier is essentially decreased. And not only this, there's also leavers who just, if you win against an opponent, like, so when you queue up in a Battlerite game, you have to win 3 rounds in total. So if, let's say your team wins the first round, someone can literally just disconnect mid-match and they rarely get punished. Now, thankfully, they do have a forfeit option, but that still doesn't justify leaving the game entirely, because comebacks are possible. I have done it in the game where the enemy team is up to 2 rounds and we haven't won anything and we made a reverse sweep. It is possible, but because of the overall nature and high suspense and tension of the game, players would rather just leave the match and go to a new one rather than stressing out and potentially, or like having basically a 75% chance to lose the game, rather than just saying, hey, you know what, let's try to bet on that 25% and let's go all out. Maybe we can make the reverse sweep or the comeback. Like, the highly competitive nature of the game is a double-edged sword for Battlerite, because it's always high tension and suspenseful, but there's rarely any downtime. Because in League of Legends, you have, well, I'm going to use League of Legends as a reference since I haven't played Dota 2 all that much, but using League, the downtime for the intense teamfight action is farming. Whether you're farming minions or you're doing jungle camps or you're warding, etc., or moving across the map, there's a lot of downtime in between team fights to kind of alleviate the kind of rush that you get, like the fight or flight mode. But in Battlerite, you are constantly thinking, you are always processing data, and that really makes it hard to... It kind of makes the game harder to play again and again and again, because it takes so much energy out of you. And because it takes so much time and energy from you, well, actually the matches are shorter than League of Legends matches, but the kind of fight or flight mode that you're in, it could just be me, and this is my opinion, but it feels like the games are a lot longer because you're so focused. So all that time that you spent on that match could be wasted because you don't want to bet on the 25%, and it's weird because it is casual queue, so I can't really blame the leavers for leaving the game, but at the same time, I can't condone what they did either. And funny enough, they rarely get punished, so a lot of people leave the game and they don't really care. But moving on, there's also loot boxes for monetization. The monetization is kind of like Overwatch. like, or similar to it, where you can buy chest and you get items from it, and if you get a duplicate, you get a currency to where you can spend that currency on specific clothing or mounts that you want. So I don't really like the loot box method. I would rather prefer that they would do it like League of Legends, where you can directly purchase what skins that you want. To me, I feel like that's a lot better than leaving it all up to chance and playing slots within the game. I just don't like loot boxes in general. There's also no updates to the game as of this recording. It's basically abandoned by the developers since they're working on V Rising, and I've personally looked at V Rising. It wasn't my thing. The whole vampire aspect is cool, but it's just not my type of style, I suppose. And the last thing that I guess I would say is a flaw of Battlerite. It's just basically overall, it's the nature of the game. It's the highly competitive aspects. And giving you that highest of highs when you outplay your opponent and you finesse them, or you make a reverse sweep, or you pull off a successful 1v2 or a 2v3. Like, those moments feel really nice. But when you lose, you really lose. Like, if there's a player that is clearly better than you, it will show. The high skill cap of Battlerite is super high. The amount of execution you need to kind of maneuver your character, your positioning, your awareness of the map, and your builds on your character and your matchups. There's a lot of intricacies within Battlerite that you can utilize to stomp on the lower level players. It's kind of like a fighting game where, let's just say you're the new player and you don't know much about the characters, and you're up against a veteran that has played hundreds or thousands of hours. They know the character's movesets, they know the frame data, they know specific punishes. 99% of the time, the new player will not win. 99% of the time, depending on the fighting game. And Battlerite kind of feels like that as well, where the knowledgeable player will always win, in a sense. And so I feel like that aspect of it kind of deterred other players away from the game, because it takes a lot out of you as a player to become successful within the game. And ever since I played League of Legends, I never thought I would say this, but League of Legends made me realize that I loved being competitive. I want to outplay my opponents, and I want to be the best at whatever I'm doing. And Battlerite has definitely offered that sense of competitiveness that I've kind of longed for, like a fighting game. Battlerite has so many good things about it. Like, the gameplay is fluid, it's responsive, it's easy to learn but hard to master, it's free to play, there's lots of unique characters you can choose from, there's lots of customizations that you can do, from customizing your characters, outfits, to the builds that you use. It's not graphically intensive, and the feeling of outplaying and finessing your opponent feels really fucking good. But the flaws of the game are just so overpowering that it's, in my opinion, very hard to ignore, which is why I tend to play Battlerite on and off rather than playing it at a consistent basis. Battlerite was a game that I purchased early on in 2017, and I thought nothing of it, but after being on and off with the game and coming back to it recently, I honestly wished that this game had more players and that it had an esports scene, and that the community, well, not the community, but I guess overall, I wish the game thrived, I suppose. If the game had more updates, more characters, more outfits, skins, and customization options, and just overall more content, I for sure would have streamed and uploaded so much Battlerite content. I honestly don't know why I made this video or even the purpose of this video, but I just felt like Battlerite had a lot of potential, and some of you may think that I'm talking out of my ass, and others may find some points agreeable, but I truly felt like Battlerite was a hidden gem that wasn't able to shine brightly.